Thank you for joining us here on this last Live in Focus for 2016. My guest in studio is Mayor Dave Snow, who is the mayor of Richmond, Ken Paust, Wayne County Commissioner, Pete Zaleski, who's Wayne County Council President, and if we get a chance, we'll also have Bruce Wissel, who is the President of Common Council. My name is Phil Quinn, and typically I do a radio thing, so pictures are just a new thing for me, but we're happy to have you along. This is a 90-minute In Focus. We're going to have to talk to Eric Marsh about that. By the way, Eric away today, so I'm helping with the hosting duties. We look forward to having Eric back at the beginning of 2017. The phone numbers, in case you have a question for our legislators that are here today, 973-8587. You can also tweet us at WCTV Info. And finally, email wctv@wctv.info if you have some questions. Gentlemen, there is a wide array of areas that we could go. I thought it would be good to talk about 2016. Having been a former elected official and having to work with the county, it seemed from this vantage point that Wayne County and the city of Richmond had a lot of conversation, a lot of communication this year. Is that
Absolutely.
the fact?
Yeah, we've had a great working relationship since day one of this year. I think it's been tremendous.
Yep, certainly has. And well, what we tried to do, we had a good working relationship with Sally when she was mayor. When Dave came on board, we contacted him, and we scheduled our quarterly meetings that we do on a regular basis. Plus exchange cell phone numbers so that when we get those hot projects,
right,
you know, like Gar Jackson Road or Blue Buffalo, you know, that we're in contact with each other. And we have worked very well. And we have several other interlocal agreements that we work with the city and the county together. And very frankly, why not?
Sure.
I mean, there isn't any reason why we shouldn't. We're all here for one reason, to make this the best community we can.
Yeah, and it hasn't all just been by call and appointment requirements. You know, members of county council have attended city council meetings. I've attended some of the meetings in county council chambers as issues have come up, and so we've just tried to stay abreast on each other's news and what's happening with city and county government. I just think it's been tremendous.
Well, and let me ask you, Pete, because you've been on county council for a while, and Ken has been a county commissioner for a while now, and also being a city council member. What was your impression of working with the city of Richmond this first year of Mayor Snow's term?
Dave has had absolutely an open door policy, and I've popped my head in there many a times saying, what do you guys think on this? What are you doing here? We need to be working together in this place.
Well, and how important are those conversations? I mean, you know, having one-on-one conversations, and I know, Dave, we will talk about this later on, where you've been meeting with Council President Bruce Wissel on a regular basis. How important are having those one-on-ones to I don't know, to find out?
It's very, very important.
It is.
I mean, you know, when you were on city council, let's go back to EDC, way would be 8 years ago now, when as a city council person you had all kinds of questions along with the other 8 members of the city council. And the personal relationship that we developed at that time, when I went out and sat down individually with all the city council people and talked with them. What are your concerns? What would you like to see happen that hasn't been happening? And we were able at that time to be able to put a new EDC contract together only by going, if I had not gone out and sat down with all those folks to talk to them to find out what are you interested in, I think we would have had a collapse of the EDC the way it's now structured today.
Well, and I think the EDC is a great point, and I want to talk about that a little bit later on, because one of the areas that I wanted us to talk about as we recap 2016, first of all, I mean, other than towards the end of the year when we had a little bit of turmoil about wind turbines and wind farms, it was a relatively controversial-free year, both at the city government side and the Wayne County side. Is that by design?
Well, there wasn't any controversial issues, really.
We had the syringe exchange program earlier
well, that's
this year.
true.
That
That's
created
true.
some controversy.
Yeah.
I attended those.
A lot of discussion
yeah,
on
I
that.
attended that
right.
meeting in county council chambers. And And they've done a tremendous job on some of these hot button issues that have come up, of letting the public come in and really take the time to speak and state their.
Well, the more we work together, it's just like I brought some more numbers to Dave tonight that I wanted to share with him. And Dave being new, and yes, I've been here almost 40 years in this, between the city side and county council and now commissioner on there. Sometimes the history is very important, even when new county council people come on and move into the chairs. They need to know, how did we get to where we are today, and what's the past history, and why were the decisions made this way to do this? And it's like we were talking before we started here about 911. Dave had some questions on that. Well, it's brand new, and you need to come in, and we need to get numbers. We need to let him see the interlocal agreements so he understands how this all happened in the past and how we got to where we are today on there.
All right. Dave, I want to spend some time just asking about your reflections, having been a year in office now. Is it all that you had hoped it would be?
Yeah, I think in terms of hopes, absolutely. It's a tremendous job. I love it every day. I love the community connections. I really recharge and recenter when I'm doing something very community oriented. You know, Tuesday night I stood and rang a bell for the Salvation Army down in the depot for the Christmas festival. That's sort of my way of recharging the battery and recentering. It really helps me to sort of refocus, just to do little community stuff like that. The year in office has been tremendous. It is one of the most fascinating and rewarding and challenging jobs that exists. And it's very difficult to define what that job really is. It's a lot of chaos management. It's a lot of patience. It's a lot of learning not to react immediately and to filter things from urgent to important, and to always make the right decision for the city. There are a lot of people who like things to stay the way they are. And then there's a lot of people that like change for the sake of change, and you can't adhere to either one. You have to just make sure it's the right decision for the city, whether it's the way we've done it or a new way, and not let those pressures get to you. But it's so much fun. It really is.
Well, I was going to ask, from your standpoint on the county, if you were to give a grade to how the city has been ran in the last year, what would you guys?
I don't like being put on the spot.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, here's something that I had heard was that, and I think it's a great testament to your leadership style, that you have done a lot of consensus building, that you've talked to people, you've gotten a lot of information and facts. I know that that's not always been the case, and that you had a nice open door policy where people can come in and give you a perspective, but you've taken some time on making some decisions, and I think that's admirable, but what do you guys think?
I've had a great relationship with Dave, having worked in a campaign against him initially. There was a little bit of contentions between us probably to start off with, but I think we've worked through those things.
Yeah.
And understanding that, you know, we need a good working relationship. Dave has brought a lot of the qualities that Sally had in that office forward. Having that open door policy, being able to reach out to the public, being involved and being seen in public. Dave has been there and has been out in the public and available for folks to speak whenever available.
Yeah, and Ken, you would agree with that?
I certainly would agree with that. I would say initially, as Dave came on, we were saying, hey, if you need help, call us. We'll do this, we'll do that, you know. And in some cases, we were free to say, hey, think about this, think about that, you know. I guess I was a little disappointed in the earlier phase, because prior to the election, we had talked out at the Holiday Inn when we were all there doing a community event on there about their IT department and how we might be able to do an interlocal agreement maybe through IT and some different things this way. That didn't come to pass, so you know, that's one of those that we really never got back to have long discussions on to see how we might do that, because I'd always felt initially, you know, one big IT department could really do this, and if you put it all together, and all of our departments have to coordinate, and all their IT people with our IT people and everything on there, and that was one I was a little disappointed on, but I get disappointed all the time. I have all these ideas, you know, as Pete will tell you, county council will look at me and say, now what, Paust? And they say, are you kidding us? You really want to do that? And I say, oh yeah, I think this would be great for the community, you know, and he can tell you I have some projects now, you know, we won't talk about those, but I say, you know, I think we ought to do this could be good, you know, but they kind of hold me in the hand, you know, and kind of put up with it on there.
But that's part of the checks and balances. I mean,
well,
that's the way it works, right?
Yeah. And Dave and I have, and I've always said from the beginning, I said, one thing I've found with him, he's more than willing to talk to me. There isn't this Democrat, Republican type thing. Yeah. It's what's good for the community on there, and what do we need to do. And I think he'll tell you, I've consistently, if you need me, I'm here. All you got to do, call. The county's here. How can we help you? It's where we all have to work together for this community, the same as we're beginning to do now with the new Eastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, which is a 5-county area, and with Wayne County being the key within that 5-county area. So as Richmond kind of goes within the county, what's good for Richmond's good for the outlying towns we have. The same thing, what's good for Wayne County is good for those other 4 counties that are around us on there. And that's a new concept, and it's been coming over the last, I'll say, 10 or 12 years. We're still not there yet, but we're beginning to build all those relationships, and they're good.
Well, let's talk about 2016. By the way, for those joining us, this is In Focus. We're live tonight, the last live show of the year. You can send us a question via email at WCTV@WCTV.info. You can call us at 973-8587. I want to talk about successes in 2016, and I think a good place to start would be we have 2 sitting Republicans here with us. We have 1 Democrat. The presidential election had a lot of vitriol. There was a lot of, I mean, you could really see where the division was at the national level, maybe even at the state level. Did that filter down in this past year? It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like that was an issue.
It filtered down at all.
Okay.
Do you?
No, I don't think so.
No.
So I'd think that'd be a success. I mean, that's a good start for 2016.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So 2016, looking at back at the city, what were some of the successes? What are some of the things that you'll hang your hat on going into?
You know, I think one of the major successes for all of us was Blue Buffalo.
Oh, sure.
And our teamwork on that, and the way that we all came together and navigated through that infrastructure upgrade and just got it done.
Do citizens of the city and the county, do they realize that impact when you're out talking to them? I mean, that is a significant investment into the community.
I think people realize the impact. I don't think people necessarily realize the challenge required to get the companies here. I remember, you know, during my campaign, and people would say, will you try to get businesses here? If a business tries to locate here, would you bring them? And the answer is, of course. Oh, absolutely, I would do that. Then you get in the big chair, and you get the opportunity, and then you see the price tag and what it requires, and you think, oh, this is not as easy as I thought. And without the teamwork of the EDC, City Council, County Council, and Commissioners, there's no way we could have pulled that off. So it was a huge win for all of us, and it has a giant impact, and it's a momentum impact. Once this starts, it's going to keep snowballing. We got to keep it moving forward.
When you drive down I-70 and you just look at that pad, and they're beginning to put some steel up now, and you look at how big that, and you think, boy, isn't that nice? You know, but Dave's absolutely right. The difficulty in putting that project together, and let's say the roadblocks that popped up in that last 2.5 weeks on there before we finalized everything in there. A lot of meetings, a lot of coordination, a lot of attorneys involved. And boy, when you get to that stage with the attorneys, oh my gosh. I mean, it's hard enough getting there, and then you get attorneys, and you get local attorneys, plus you get 2 attorneys from Blue Buffalo, you know, in different locations, and you're trying to talk to all of them and get all the resolutions that the city council had to pass and that the county council had to pass and we as commissioners had to pass, and getting the coordination on all that. Dave's absolutely right. The ability of all of us to work together and pull that off just shows us, bring us to the next project.
That's right.
Because we can do it too, and make that equally successful project.
Well, in Omen, USA, also Sugar Creek, even though Sugar Creek is in Cambridge City or in that industrial park, that still benefits the individual communities as well, right?
Yeah.
Pete?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, it benefits all the individual communities. And I think another part of this coordination of processes with the city and the county, I think a lot should be said about Valerie Schaefer's efforts there. And she showed a lot of growth in that position and being able to work with sometimes us politicians with big heads and egos and whatnot, and working to get those things set aside to really move forward.
Well, the cooperation, it goes clear back to the beginning when we established the Economic Development Department. And that came together over a period of years. And I can remember sitting in the first meeting in the city building on the second floor when we were talking about maybe hiring an economic development person. And Paul Lingle was bringing that in and was promoting that at the time on there, and everybody was saying, well, you know, how much is it going to cost? And should we do this, you know, and would the city council, myself at the time, would I support something like that? And the more we talked about it, we decided, yes, that we really should do something, because what we had done in the past had basically been done by Richmond Power and Light. And Richmond Power and Light had the money, and originally we had bought some grounds over on Northwest 5th Street across from Alcoa on there, and we came in and decided, okay, well, we'll open this up and this will be our first kind of industrial park. And what we do, we just split the land in half, and we paved a road down the center of it. And that was the extent of our economic development at the time on there. But out of that has grown to where we are today with the cooperation not only of the city and the county, but, you know, Hagerstown, Centerville, Mount Auburn, and all the towns out there. Fountain City is out at the moment, but has been in. They've all participated and cooperated in there, where they're all given half of their edit money for this purpose on there to support what we have done. And it's been beneficial for everybody. And it just shows you it has to start someplace, and how it grows over the years. Fortunately, I've been there to watch it from one little person that we hired to where we are today.
Well, since we're talking about that as being a success in the city, can we go ahead and maybe bridge that gap? Because there are some challenges for 2017 when it comes to economic development. I think one of those has got to be finding space and keeping the momentum going. That's not an easy task for 2017. Right. Are those the biggest challenges that you face with economic development, or attracting more jobs into the area?
Well, there isn't any doubt. I've been on a kick for the last 6 years that we do not have enough land. I like the land bank, and Pete will tell you that I'm always saying, you know, we need to look at this, whether it's a building around the county side over there, that when they come available, my feeling is they only come available maybe once in a lifetime, and that if we can acquire there, if they're adjacent to us, we should pick those up, because sometime down the road we're going to need that additional space.
Because we do have a shortage, right? I mean that we're out of land in a lot of cases.
At this moment, we're out of land. City's working on some in there. We're working on ours. But you don't always have willing sellers that are willing to be able to sell land that is available. For all practical purposes, we're out of land in our Gateway Park. On your park, you're close to being out, if I recall, on there. So where do we go from there? 6 years ago, I felt we should have been buying land at that time, because if you come in to me right now, Dave and I don't have anybody to say to Val, take them out and show them this 200-acre plot of land. We don't have that. It's not there to us. And so finally, I give EDC, finally, they're now saying, hey, when we're out, and now they're trying to fill that glass again, and so they're out and we're trying to acquire land, and we are talking to folks out there. But it's going to take some time.
You would agree on that? That's a major focus for 2017.
I would say it's going to be a focus. And the challenge is we have to change the model of how the EDC is working right now, because we're able to have our own land in the industrial parks to sell or to market, and now it's going to be development through realtors and whatnot, that those properties are going to be available. So it's going to be a different focus on how they do their business.
And from the county and the city side, I think another focal point, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Dave, you've been so passionate about trying to connect people with ways that they can get assessments and improve their job skills. I mean, we can't attract more companies without having a workforce.
That's correct.
What's the city's? What are your hopes to next year to try?
Well,
to
and
help
that's
with
the
that?
stuff that I'm already working on. I'm trying my hardest to connect the people of this community to, work-ready resources, and working on ways that we can market that outside of the city to show the opportunities here. I've been doing this just to, I found a gap. As I would go out and talk to people within the city, and I would say, what are your expectations of me? You've hired me to do a job. What do you want to see out of that job? And they would often say, bring more jobs here. And I'd say, well, tell me, where's it lacking? What's wrong? And they would say, I can't find this, I can't find that. I apply and I'm turned down. I need more opportunities. When I would talk to the managers, the hirers, the business owners, they'd say, we have a lot of openings that we're not able to fill because there's a skills gap and there are problems. And so I started seeing less of a lack of opportunities and more of a gap in resource connection.
Training.
Yeah, and so I started trying to just attack that. And that actually caught the attention of a company that sent some site selectors here, and they said, we understand your mayor is trying to do workforce resources, and they said, well, yeah. And that was important to them. Like, oh my gosh, the mayor's involved in trying to connect the community to the workforce. So I'm really passionate about it, and I'm going to keep pushing forward on that in as many ways as I can, while still being helpful. I don't want to be in the way. People don't always tell the mayor when the mayor's in the way. You're trying to be helpful, but they don't always
Trying
say,
to be
Mayor,
nice,
you're in the
yeah.
way. Get back.
Sure. If you're just tuning in, this is In Focus on WCTV. Phil Quinn in for Eric Marsh today. The phone number is 973-8587 and WCTV at WCTV Info if you would like to send us along. You don't have to send us any questions or call. We're doing just fine. I mean, we're just talking. The other side of local government is spending tax dollars wisely, and I think another success that I saw with the city and the county has been this way for a while. Approved budget, but this time with the city, there was the opportunity to be able to give a little bit more money to the employees.
Yes.
That's got to be a huge thing for, if nothing, camaraderie. I mean,
It is. It was a big morale boost.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That was a lot of work. When I came in, the message I heard the most was that the base pay had not been increased for years, and so we worked really hard to find a way to increase everybody's base. And so 2%, it's incremental. The idea will be to continue that process moving forward, but to also make the proper investments. Living in Richmond, you need to have a good experience while you're living here. It needs to be a great day every day that you're living in the city. So it was a lot of discussion with all the department heads. What can we do to make everyone's experience here better? So there was a big investment made in parks and investments made in street departments so that the experience here is what it should be.
But the dollars used are still less than they have been. I mean, the amazing thing from my vantage point, and maybe it was just my problem, because the budgets it seemed to be a really smooth process and the department heads were really on board. And on the county side too, I mean, it seems like the county runs very efficiently for the tax dollars that you're given. I mean, yes, I mean.
We want to work toward that
Right.
direction of being running smoothly.
We
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
It appears that way. I think that there's smart use of dollars. There's dollars in the bank. I think the city has a reserve that's building.
Yeah, and it's not just those line items. It's time. I really enforce that heavily in the city building every day. That every minute we are in that building working, that is the citizens' money, because time is money, and any amount of wasted time on our part, we're wasting their money. And so I just enforce
Sounds like
that
your
daily.
dad, by the way.
I know.
That sounds exactly like something your dad.
I know, it is. So thank you, Dad, for instilling that in
right.
me. But it's just really important to me that we are all working hard and moving forward all the time, moving the needle. I can tell you that the dynamics in the building for a lot of the people that have been there for a long time are very different. And for some of them, I'll be really honest, it's been a tough adjustment. They're not used to the mayor being all over the building all the time, sticking his head into every office. What's going on? What are you guys working on? How are we moving the needle? I haven't heard about this in a couple, and they're not used to that.
Right.
And for some of them, they're just like,
What are you
why
doing
is
here?"
he in here every day in this office? Why is he up here on the
Okay.
third floor in my office? But that's how I am. I'm very hands-on to the point that I think sometimes I'm in the way. But most people won't tell me to
I
tell me to
understand.
get out of them.
Sure.
But it's really important to me.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the challenges then when it comes to those budgets. And I know it's been in the news recently about health insurance. We don't know where that moving target is going to be with
Right.
a new administration coming into place in Washington, D.C. But I got to think that health insurance for the county, you guys have been really prudent on that. I think the city is getting a grasp on what their challenges are. Is that the biggest challenge for
Well,
2017?
It's always a big challenge. Health insurance goes up every year. We've done an outstanding job. There isn't any doubt in my mind about that. On our side on there, we currently negotiated 3 years ago a contract with the hospital. In our plans, we did that both not only for the Richmond Community School System, but ourselves. At that time, I was disappointed that we were not able to get the city in the plan with us at the time. We had talked to them and hoped to do the negotiations, which I did at the time, for all three entities. The more I could get, the more numbers I had, the stronger I was when I talked to the hospital on that. And unfortunately, the city chose to go in some other directions, which we all know was not real successful for them on there. And when Dave came in his office, he faced all of the debts that you had in that particular case. We have put many new things into place. We put a very strong wellness program in place in cooperation with Reed Hospital on there. One that Pete can talk to because of his daytime job as a pharmacist on there. We've taken a long, hard look at that, and that's been an area that we've been able to put programs in place in there of utilizing generic drugs instead of the brand name drugs on there. Also, our hiring of TPA, Dunn and Associates out of Columbus, Indiana, that we did several years ago, and working with all of us together in there, we have been able to build a nice reserve. They like to call part of it Kenny's Fund that I've built over a few years on there. But we worked hard, and you don't do this overnight. You do it over a long period of time, whether it's just the health segment or it's the general fund budget. I can take you back in the general fund when I sat on county council and Marge Sharp was president at that time. We were looking at our operating balance that we had, and we really didn't have the amount of money that we really needed. And that time, Marge and I decided, well, we needed at least $3 million, and our goal was to build out of our budgets to get that working capital. I'm proud to say today we have that up to about $7 million, and council has done an outstanding job over the last few years of working on that. That at the end of the year we have a $6 to $7 million balance in there that will carry us until we get our paycheck. The county only gets paid, same as the city. We only get 2 paychecks a year on there. And so in working on all those, and I'm still hoping that one of these days when the city finally gets all of their insurance problems worked out where they have it all under control, we can get them back with us so that the 3 units would be under one TPA, which has been a very, very successful TPA for us. So they've chose to go back to a firm out of Texas again, which, yeah, I'm disappointed on that, that they went there. The school system went with that same organization for 1 year and dropped off from us. And I said, oh, you really don't want to do that. Well, it took them 1 year to learn. By golly, you were right, and they're right back with our same TPA again, and I hope you don't learn the hard way, on that one,
This is not the first time I've heard Ken Powell say, I told you so. Has anybody else?
Actually, the move to the Texas-based I vetoed. I never
all right,
that.
That's good. Well, because I have that question for the city. The city has a couple of complications. One is, of course, the health insurance. It's an older workforce that is at the city. And
Our average age is 49.
Right. But then you have those challenges, but also something that's unique to the city is bargaining units and having those negotiations. Where are those currently, and what do you see going into 2017?
Yeah, we have our transit union, police, fire, and labor union. Our transit union has voted and accepted their contract for 17. We are still in talking phases with the other 3, and those should be going as just moving accordingly.
Okay.
So I walked into a healthcare situation that I was not happy with at all. When I came in, the city was utilizing a repricing model for their health care. And I just was not happy with how that was operating and the consequence of that, which the end consequence is that the employee, when they
very
go,
unfortunate.
yeah, and I just didn't like it. The employee, when going to the doctor, signs that they agree to pay the bill. So when it's repriced and the repriced amount is offered as payment and that payment is not accepted, it is then the employee that moves into the litigation or collection process. And that to me was not an appropriate way to handle healthcare. So I moved us out of that repricing model. Mid-year, it was taken to Board of Works to switch over to the Texas-based TPA, but I vetoed that from my office and said I'm not making that move. So we have continued with our previous TPA through the end of this year. I settled with Reed Hospital. I think
Yeah, we
we
did
saw
see
that in the
that.
news. That was the $1.3 million settlement to settle the past bills, to remove that threat of litigation and collection. And then we entered into a 6-month contract with Reed that would take us from June until the end of this year. And then there is no repricing. Now the city just pays the balance to cover the employees. And so in that process, did just a tremendous amount of research into what our next step for 2017 would be. So the end result of that was moving to United Healthcare for 2017 with UMR as the administrator. So it's a self-funded program.
Okay.
And honestly, you know, as much work as this has already been, I really do believe the challenge is just beginning, because we have a lot of work to do to live within these means and to get our people healthy and to the doctor and get them through wellness programs.
I was going to say that's a big key. Pete, this is sort of your wheelhouse. You know, drugstore and Phillips Drugs. What do you see are these challenges that we see in health insurance, and how does that relate to the costs that businesses see, because they're the ones that end up paying the taxes with residents?
Right. And in healthcare across the board, there's increases going on. Personally, in our own business, we're seeing a nearly 10% increase from last year just in health insurance costs. The model of self-insurance is completely different than the fully insured model.
But a 10% increase, and you can only get 1% in increase in property tax caps. You're making cuts at that point.
Right, we're going backwards.
Yeah.
And working toward the wellness and making sure that folks are getting the tests they need. Are they catching high blood pressure? Are they catching those things early? Are they taking, if they're needing to take medications, are they taking their medications? What assurances that are in place there? It's the same things that the national government or the federal government's doing with Medicare program that these our self-insured programs have to do locally.
Yeah. Are there other challenges? I would think that some of the other issues that come before local governments, you know, trash pickup, and I know that's not a county concern, but then there's highway and street departments. As you look at those costs and what's going to happen in the future, it seems like there's going to be a lot of road work in the next year, and I would assume that there's some projects happening to help Blue Buffalo and Guard Jackson. Is that a big challenge for next year?
At least on the county side, we've got those dollars set aside, and the state has dictated where those dollars have to come from. There was a highway rebate that came back, and then also from the rainy day fund. And they're matching those dollars to the tune of $1 million for us. I think $1 million for you guys,
well,
and then Centerville's getting a portion back. And those projects are already paid for.
The
But
big challenge is going to be to get the population of Wayne County, and I say Wayne County because it's not just in the city of Richmond, to smile and bear with us while all this construction is going on. And you know, folks should be happy that this is happening. And you got a little bit of a taste of it on US 40 on Main Street this year on that. And the last I heard, they're kind of pushing Milestone to come back in and finish the far east side of US 40, and that they're going to open up their asphalt plant and come back in and pave that, because that's like a washboard out there right now.
It's pretty difficult.
And we're getting all kinds of calls on that.
I'm getting a lot of calls too.
Okay, because originally we had heard that it was too cold. The weather was the issue,
Yeah.
not necessarily
Right.
Milestone.
Right.
And then
Right.
all of a sudden an email comes through, and who do I give the credit to? We got to thank somebody for that.
Well,
Mayor, do you want that credit?
I'm not taking any credit, but I will tell you I've received a lot of calls, not only about the washboard road,
Right.
but about the striping down 40
Right.
through the
Yeah.
retail district. And so our Director of Public Works, Greg Steens, has very good relationships with NDOT and Milestone. And I said, Greg, please, it's
Everybody's
daily.
been on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Finish
just
the
got
job.
the email from them actually late yesterday that said we're going to come in. They're going to try and mill down some of those if they can.
All right.
And they're going to do some restriping down 40 and try to make it a little better and a little more visible. They're going to try to make it better. But next year, though,
Yeah,
the construction, I mean, we're talking 40 all the way through 27. We're tearing up 7th and 10th Streets in the summer from East Main down to the depot. So there's going to be a lot. And there's some bridge work.
Bridge works out in the county, and
yeah.
South A Street will be, all of those, like you said, South 8th Street, those are going to go down to one lane. A Streets, the interesting part on South A Street is they're going to use a new process. First time in the state of Indiana, so we're going to be a guinea pig for that, so that'll be interesting.
I'll
on
cross
there.
my fingers.
Yeah, and what they're going to do, they're bringing in, I call it precast streets. In essence, they're going to be bringing in these great big blocks, and they're going to set them down instead of coming in like they normally do, put the gravel down and all this other stuff and build it up and put the asphalt in different layers. They're bringing these big slabs or whatever you want to, that are precast, and bring it in and set it down and put them together. So I'm anxiously awaiting to watch that.
Me too.
And I said, well, how do they get it? Don't you get a bump where they come together? Oh no, this works out, and it's been used in other states on there. And it's supposedly it's faster. It speeds the process up. It's like if you look at Elder Bierman, when that was built, the outside of that building, those were all precast. They come in, just set them in place. Pretty soon they had all the outside structure done. So it'll be interesting to see how that works on South 8th Street.
Well, I put your marketing hat on, Dave, because I think you excel in getting people to look at the bright side of things. How are you going to handle
Yes.
Because there's going to be people that aren't sure if that's a state project or a city project
Right.
or a county project.
That will be
They
tough.
just see orange.
Right.
So how are you going to handle this?
I have actually been working on a marketing campaign to put a positive spin on it that I will share with everyone so we can all use it collectively. And it's going to be called Paving the Way. So what you'll see is, we're paving the way to, and then we can cap that with whatever we want. We're paving the way to better parks. We're paving the way to better roads. We're paving the way to better trails to ride your bicycle. And you'll see Paving the Way coming next year.
Okay.
And then something else I'm going to launch, once we get under this construction phase, you'll see something come out of my office called the Clean Corridor Initiative. And that's going to be something a little bit different, where we talk about creating an amnesty period to get the alleys cleaned up and the front porches cleaned off, and let's get the city looking beautiful. Because the idea here is we're going to be under construction for 18 months. But on the other side of that, we're going to have Blue Buffalo, we're going to have new companies, we're going to have new jobs, we're going to have beautiful new streets. So let's make it a beautiful city. And I'll create an amnesty period where I'll say, look, we're going to help you get the alleys cleaned up and get the front yards and the streets cleaned up. But after this, you start throwing this trash and stuff out, I'm going to increase enforcement and fines. Like, we're going to put some teeth behind this. Because if there's one thing that I heard more than anything while running for mayor, it was, when is it Richmond's time to shine? It's a great city full of great people and great opportunities. And people always feel like somehow, Richmond comes in second or third place. Why are we always like the B team? When are we going to be the A team? And this is our chance. I mean, it's time. I mean, I really, truly believe that. We have...
Well, you got the influx of your stellar money.
Yeah.
$21 million.
Yeah. We're a two-time All-America city, a stellar city. We have Blue Buffalo coming into town. We have other tremendous companies already here. We have wonderful opportunities. We have amazing parks that are now regrowing and just becoming beautiful again. We have a wonderful arts culture. We have a tremendous history. I mean, so it's time for us to shine. And it's time to crack down on that, on the people that aren't getting it.
We did forget to mention you're going to do Main Street also, coming up from the gorge up
Yeah,
past.
yeah, right.
Yeah, you've got that part of the Stellar project.
We'll call 2017 the year of the road.
Well, yeah, because I think that's going to be a big part of it. And I think businesses understand that having a solid, refurbished infrastructure does help growth down the road.
Oh, without a doubt.
And you know, in some cases, I think a lot of us feel that, you know, especially A Street has gotten neglected
Well, if
over
you're
the
a
years.
site selector and you come into this community, you want to kind of leave it and say, boy, I'd like to live there myself,
Right.
you know. And so if you have bumpy streets with chuck holes and stuff, or if we don't have our grass cut, you know, if the city building didn't cut their grass, we didn't cut ours, we didn't plant flowers, we didn't do different things, they say, well, I don't know whether I want to come here. Why should I invest $1 million or $5 million or $100 million in this community? Is this where I want to bring my plant?
Right.
That's a big part of it. And you know, part B of that, because it's a two-part, you know, I have friends that moved away from Richmond because the grass was greener elsewhere. And it is a really, I'm impassioned by, I want to send out that message and say, you know, the grass is greener at home now. You know, the opportunities are here. The city is here. You left to go find something better, but better is home now. So that's important to me to accomplish that in my time in this office.
All right, we are at a great spot, I think, to maybe take a quick break. This is In Focus Live. Thank you for joining us. And I know we did have one chat question, but we sort of answered it when it came under the health insurance and the union negotiations. So, but we can talk about a little bit more about that. We still have yet to discuss the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is progress on the old hospital. So with that, you knew that was coming up. Absolutely knew that was coming up. We're going to step aside. This is In Focus on WCTV.
I made myself a snowball, as perfect as could be. I thought to keep it as a pet and let it sleep with me. I made it some pajamas and a pillow for its head. Then, last night, it ran away, but first, it wet the bed.
Happy holidays from First Bank.
Thank you for tuning in to Proudly We Served. We want to thank First Bank Richmond and Premier Toyota for their support. The episode that you're going to see for this month is involving some guys. We're going to talk about what it's like to be away from home during Christmas.
Proudly We Served, underwritten by Premier Toyota of Richmond and First Bank Richmond, airs Monday nights at 8 p.m. on WETV, Channel 20.
It's the most wonderful time of year.
Time to deck the halls.
Time for Jack Frost to nip at your nose. All of us at RMD Patty Insurance, Richmond, Liberty, and Cambridge City.
We hope your days are filled with love, laughter, peace, and understanding.
From our family to your family,
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hughes, host of The Third Sector. This month, my guest is Eric Marsh, who is the director of WCTV.
Is a not-for-profit organization. We are a 501c3. When people think about television, they don't always think about it being a not-for-profit organization.
Join me for The Third Sector on Thursdays at 8:30 on Channel 20 WETV.
Welcome back to In Focus here on Whitewater Community Television. Phil Quinn filling in for Eric Marsh. This is our last live show of 2016. Eric will be back in the new year, and we wish him all the best, and as well as his family. And I know for a lot of us here, we're doing a recap of 2016, but sort of incorporating what 2017 expectations are, objectives. And I do know that we have had some folks that have been interested in sitting along a question. So we do have one of those chat questions that we'll throw up on I don't know if I want to say that on television. We'll put it onto the screen once they're ready back there. There's a lack of young people 35 and under and people of color represented in many areas of our community, both in and out of government. If this community is to grow, this cannot continue. As community leaders, please lead and speak to this issue. How can this community work to foster greater diversity of thought and participation? And what are each of you doing to address this issue? There's a lot compacted there, but I do think just looking at this studio at the moment, we're all a little bit older, we're all white, and is this representative of what the community is? And how do you fix that? Pete, I'll give you that loaded question first.
It's not representative of the community, obviously. Even as we look at hiring folks in county positions, we've looked at where do we need to put and make sure our applications are available. Where do we need to make sure we're allocating those dollars for employment, and we've not done a great job in the past, and we're changing some of our processes to be available and make those jobs available and make sure people are aware of the jobs that we have throughout the community in all aspects.
It is difficult in some cases. Over the years, I've had discussions with different folks on this, and I'm always saying, bring us applicants, bring us applicants. And in many cases, you get no applications. And so if you have no applications, I'm sure you run into the same thing on the city side on there. If you have no applications, there's less of an opportunity from minority folks to be able to get one of those jobs if they don't apply. And I know what we've tried through our HR department now is to make sure that the posting of all of our jobs are out there. Eric Marsh, sure. Who's absent here. I shouldn't say he's absent, he's just, you're filling in for him tonight. Right. Okay, but we've talked on several occasions, and we make a point of getting the information to him because he's posting it on TV also. And so we're trying very hard to get that information out there. One of the big things that we run into today, and we're all facing that, we can get, and I know in our sheriff's department in there, we went through when Sheriff Kappa was working on some 75 applications. And by the time we got through all of those and down, he only had 2 people that would actually qualify to be able to be put onto the force. And most of them couldn't pass the drug test. And we know that's a major problem today that we run into on there. I wish I had an answer for that. You're right, we are all getting older, and I guess I'm the oldest one here this evening. And you encourage folks, and we have had some minorities that have run for offices before on there, and you encourage them to do that. And I think you have to just keep trying all the time to get them involved and to work with the different groups on there to get them to try and run for elected offices as well as to be more involved in the community.
What's the city able to do, or
well, it's been important to me from day one to make sure that our city leadership represents our community. You know, I went through a extensive process to find a police chief and a fire chief, and was very frank in that search with all candidates. I'm looking for a police chief and a fire chief that will make sure that our police and fire department represents this city and is diverse, not only in race, but I want to make sure that we have women represented, and gender equality as well as racial equality. And so I check with the chiefs regularly as they move into recruiting processes to make sure that we're still adhering to that.
I would like to think that in some cases, and I don't want to speak for us doing this show, but some of the things we're talking about are simply boring to someone under the age of 35. I mean, there's national issues and statewide issues that, the social and morality side of politics, or maybe there's, legalization of pot. There are subjects that people get passionate about, environment, but when you're in local government, the
day-to-day workings of local government and what we do,
they're
not
boring.
They're too busy.
I'm going to say something that some people might not be happy with me saying one of those people is probably out in the lobby.
Sure.
But quality leadership comes in all shapes, sizes, colors, genders, everything. What you're asking for is quality leadership, and if you really want that, stop abusing politicians at every opportunity you get. That's really the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We have taken on a culture as a country to abuse politicians, and I mean
very
abuse.
true. Oh, yeah.
They are just mean.
I mean, you got to...
Even locally.
Yeah, and so you want quality
Absolutely
people to
locally.
come up. Quality comes in all shapes, sizes,
That's
colors, and
right.
ages, and you're going to miss out on a lot of quality people who, frankly, just don't want to get beat up every single day to do this job. Any of these jobs.
You have to in this job if you want to. One, you have to want to do it, and you have to have thick skin. And if you don't, you won't last in this job very long. And mine must be pretty thick because I've stayed around for a long time, but I thoroughly enjoy it because you look at the opportunity, and Dave, you take yourself as a young man, where else would you have the opportunity to set the stage for a whole community and be able to put some of those things in places like you're doing the 7th Street with the Stellar Project, the 10th Street. And you were involved in helping to get that Stellar money here. Yeah. As an individual citizen, you don't have that opportunity to do that, and that's what I've enjoyed over the years, my ability to be able to work on these. You know, and I've come up with some strange, unusual programs, and I mean, way back when I closed Main Street and we did the promenade, and when I talked about that, I got, okay, you are nuts. You want to do what, and you talk about young people today, the promenade's been gone long enough, they don't even know what you talk about when you do that. But you're right, and I've had the death threats back in my earlier days on there. But, you have to work through all that and live through it, and you're right. Is it ever going to change? Probably not.
Well, you hope it doesn't get worse. And I know in the case of the city, Mayor Snow, there's an opportunity to, if someone is interested in police work, and there's the Police Merit Commission. I mean, there are some appointments where you can find somebody and try to get them engaged. I think that's part of the key of leadership is to find somebody, or when you meet somebody and say, boy, would you like serving on Board of Zoning Appeals or something?
Sure.
Because I think once there's some buy-in, regardless of who that person is, it can be really exciting.
And I can tell you,
to
I've always got
involved.
my eyes open. I'm always on the search for quality community leaders because we can always use them.
Right.
There's a lot of places for them.
Well, you look, my wife is retiring from the election board, who's been on that for several years and has always had the responsibility of getting all the workers for the election polls.
Oh, man.
And, you mentioned the younger people that they're not as involved, and you're absolutely correct. And as I've watched her just trying, and fortunately for us today, we have the vote centers. And when we used to have some 50-plus precincts that you had to get people for, I watch her for 2 months ahead of time working to try and get folks to work in the vote centers that we have, and it's extremely difficult. And if we've never done this, but if we ran the average age, I'm sure it's 60 to 70 someplace would be the average age.
Sure.
And what's happening, what I found with her and watching as she did that, folks are dying off and you can't find people to work anymore. And we're down to just the vote centers now. And as those folks get older and older, who's even going to run? Or you go to Marion County and you watch over there, they had to close some of the places because they could not find enough workers on there. And how do we stimulate the young people? They're so busy and they're on these cell phones they don't have time to serve on all these things that we'd like for them to serve on.
Until there's an issue that they find that's important to them, whether that's the sidewalk in front of their house, whether that's trees, blighted properties. I mean, there's a lot. Speaking of blighted properties, I've let you off the hook now to this point. We've almost been an hour into this thing, and we've got to talk about Old Reed, the old hospital. What is the status of that at this moment? Is it just a city project, and what are next steps?
Sure. We had a big joint commission meeting at the county building, and we laid out sort of a projected how the timeline can work and how the finances of this can work. But I really believe it's going to have to be a team effort. But we've had conversations about it in my office. We've sat down and discussed it, and It's an environmental hazard. It's a safety hazard. I literally lose sleep over that thing.
Because there's kids in there. It's just like the gas building, right? I mean, once there was a real major injury of somebody trespassing, that's when action really started. Are there loans available? Do we even know projected cost? Do we have any idea what it's going to take?
We don't have a
at this
pinpoint
point?
on that. We know that remediation has to come first.
Okay.
Remediation of asbestos from the building has to be step one. The closest projected cost I have in front of me right now is about $750,000 to remediate.
Well, that's less than I thought it would be.
Yeah, and that's just to get the asbestos. Then we move into the demolition phase. The questions we don't have answered are whether or not the demolished building can be buried on site at all, or whether the whole thing's going to have to be trucked out.
Okay.
I would not want to dump that building into one of our sills in our landfill because it has a lifespan, and we would be reducing the lifespan of our landfill by dropping an entire hospital into that. So we'd be trucking that out of the city to somewhere else potentially. So we have to look at that as a part of the cost as well. So it gets into the millions of dollars for sure, and we just have to take it one step at a time. That's been one of the big problems. Is it looks like such a massive problem. Nobody's really taken step one, and I'm working very hard right now to start the new year with a tangible step, if at all possible.
Well, I would think that this has to be something where there's public money, there's private dollars. I mean, you were ringing a bell out on Tuesday. Maybe we have to do some of that. But I think there has to be some engagement on the community from every side and standpoint. Is that still an option?
I think so.
I think it can be, yeah. We just have to figure out exactly what that looks like.
Because my impression is if we all are saying the same things or can envision what needs to happen with the property, once we can see the end, I think that gets people excited about
I think so too.
Joining it.
A timeline would do everything.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to understand that it's not something that's on a back burner somewhere. I have meetings about that old building almost weekly and ask regularly, how are we moving the needle today? You know, I've had state senators, U.S. senators in my office saying, what can we do to help? And I say, help me tear down an old hospital. If you really want to help me, allocate funds to tear down an old hospital. And so they all say, well, then stay in touch with us. We'll see what we can do. And I say, have we emailed today? What have we done today? What phone calls have we made today? What loans are we searching for? What are we, and just keep at it. That old building is a very multi-layered problem.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's detrimental. And it's detrimental to the entire county, not just the city of Richmond. It's in the cities. The city has the responsibility on there. But it's detrimental. It benefits every person in this county to see that structure come down and be leveled out and make that ground there's probably 20 acres that would be available for development on there. And it's on a very busy 12 to 15,000 vehicles per day going out that way. And so we all want to see that to be cleaned up on there.
Who owns the building at this point? Because it seems like the city responds with police and fire as needed for emergencies, but who's actually in charge of that property?
Well, the most is that nobody wants to be in charge of it.
Well, and I get that, but it's not on the bank.
It's now in. They haven't paid their taxes,
right?
And
for a while,
their taxes are up. Oh gosh, over $700,000, I think, on the tax part on there. So it's kind of one of those cases where it's in limbo out there a little bit. The city certainly has kind of the responsibility for it. Some folks have said, well, why won't the county take it over? Well, the county would not absorb any of that in there. And it's been up on tax sale. Nobody wants to buy the property on there. And we all know that that's not going to happen until and I say we, until we finally get that structure down and that the land's available. Then I think it's available that you can sell it, that we can recoup some of the funds that have to be paid out to be able to tear that facility down on there. But Dave's right. It's got to be, and I appreciate what he's done this year and the fact that they're moving, and he's right. It's the asbestos first. You've got to get all that out of there. Then, that's a minor cost. Then you can get into what it's going to cost. And until we really know what it's cost, you can't put a program together to figure out how do we finance this program, or how do you even go out for a grant to ask them, because they're going to say, well, what's it going to cost, and have you done all these studies and everything? And the city's got a couple of studies now where they've done, and it's a very, very slow process. It's not that they'd want it down tomorrow, and I'd like to have it down tomorrow, but it's a slow process. And there have been other communities, very frankly, where facilities like this have been around for 20 years before they finally were able to get them down.
Okay, so I know a little bit about government, having played a little bit. So I know you're an administrator, and I know county council is the budgeting arm. So where does county council agree with where the commissioners are, that this is a city issue?
At this point, it is a city issue, and having to get these initial steps out of the way, there's really not much for us as county council to be involved in the process.
Because any of the three of you, or collectively, or Reed, or the private sector, and those community leaders that we hear about that donate to so many colleges, and any collection of you're all heroes if we can get this thing down, right? I mean, everybody gets to put their stamp on this if it's collective, and I think that it's going to take the three of you or somebody say, hey, can we just get into a room, because none of that money comes without a match or without some sort of commitment. I mean, it's not going to be be free dollars.
And I've been working on that now.
Okay.
So I've been trying to put the meeting that you're talking about, I've been trying to put the nuts and bolts behind that meeting so I can call that meeting and say, here's the layout and here's what we need to do this.
Right.
So hopefully in the near future you'll see the results of that meeting.
Okay. All right. Well,
seeing equally, let's go to the Bradford. It's another complex problem, since we're talking about structures on there. That's one I know the city would like to get down. We would like to get down and see it down on there. But unfortunately, the individual there is paying their taxes. And so that gives the city of Richmond a very, very difficult situation. And that structure is only going to deteriorate. The folks do not have the dollars that it takes to do that. They don't even have the dollars to tear the building down to have a plot of land that they could build something on. And so it's very difficult, and there's only so far they can go. We can't do anything on our side because they're paying their taxes. And so what do? You got this eyesore on Main Street, and as you talk about a cleanup and everything, wow, what a problem. Yeah. What a problem.
I don't want to pit one local unit of government against another, but my experience my last few years on city council was that the state controlled so much of the purse strings on where dollars came into local communities, and that seems to be part of the progress for the state as a whole. Is it challenging trying to work with those state legislators, or getting them to listen to what issues are happening here in East Central Indiana?
Well, it's always a problem. The feds push it down to the states, and the states push it down to the cities and to the counties. And you take the felons now, where they changed that, where we have to keep them here now. Well, they did that because it saved the state of Indiana a tremendous amount of money. They didn't have to build another prison. But now all 92 counties that are out there are all
full.
The jails are full. They're working with that. We're fortunate here that we haven't been overwhelmed with felon 6. Felon 6, I think, is the classification in there. We haven't been overwhelmed with those, but I know some other counties that they've just been overwhelmed, and they've had to go out and try and find some place to put. They don't have the funding for that. The state put in the caps on there so that they keep putting that down. There's less funding. The city gets less money. We get less money. And yet, county council, city council, you still have to do the same job, but you got to do it with less money.
And more expenses on the employee side that we talked about earlier.
All of your expenses are going up, whether it's salaries, that's always our big ones that we have on there. I think it's been 10 years since you were able to give a raise on there. And hey, that's very difficult for those employees on there.
Well, let's talk about next year's not an election year. Thank heavens, for a lot of reasons.
We get a break.
We get a break.
We get a break.
Yeah.
But isn't that a good time to have some pretty important conversations when it comes to wheel tax or food and beverage tax? Because I have heard that the state says, yeah, there are some other things that you can do, but you haven't initiated some of these other things that would get you some money to do. Is that something that can be put on is that something that you want to put on a front burner for going into 2017?
Well, it's certainly on all of the state commissions that I'm serving on right now. Senator Kenley, who's Ways and Means, definitely brings the wheel tax up. Every time I've talked with him and our association groups that are talking with him, that wheel tax, that's one of the first things that pops up. Well, we've given you the opportunity with a wheel tax that the locals can implement if they want to. And if you're not going to do that, then we're not going to worry about your roads anymore. The wheel tax, it's been in the conversation so far as we're getting ready to go into the long session here in January on there. I've heard the wheel tax again. Although that hasn't been high on the list, and I'm glad for that, because it's been about 50-50. I think there's 51 counties now that have invoked the wheel tax, and the other half have not. We have not invoked the wheel tax here in Wayne County. We did try several years ago on that, and I went down to defeat on that 6-1.
Yeah, well, it was during a city election, Ken. I mean, there was nothing you could do. We all had to stand up there and go, well,
it was during the city election.
Right.
And the person that stood up with me was Monica Burns out of your city clerk's department that did vote for me on there. And I went out and gave all the speeches on why and what the amount of dollars it would bring into the city and what it would bring in for the county for road funding on there. But county council decided in their wisdom not to do that, so we move on. I try very hard on different issues. If you get defeated, fine, you go on. Maybe you can come back and try it again, but you just have to move on to the next one on there. But I do feel very strongly in all the meetings I've been in so far, and that the state legislature is going to do something this time on road funding for us, and that they're going to look and come up with a long-term plan on there. And at the conference I just came back from commissioners, we had newly elected Governor Eric Holcomb there. And one of his statements when he said that, I just sat up like this, and you can appreciate this because you can do this as a mayor, see, and on the county commissioners, we got 11 constitutional offices, you can't do that. But he says, we're going to come up with a way to sustain road funding, and if I have to lock them into a room, and we won't unlock the door until we come out of there with a solution. Then when we had Senator Kenley and Representative Brown, who are both chairman of their Ways and Means Committee in the House and the Senate, they said almost the exact same thing. So I really felt good that this session they are going to do something about that, and that will be very helpful to us on that, because road funding for the city as well as the county to keep the number of roads up that we have is very important to all of us on there, and it's costly to be able to do that. And we've been able to do that on the county side because the council budgets $900,000 every year of additional money to keep some of the 130 miles of roads that we have up into the condition that they are in today.
Yeah, Pete, wheel tax, food and beverage tax, some other things. Do you see anything like that getting implemented in the next year?
I really don't see any of those being implemented. And when we talk about food and beverage tax, what's your purpose? I've heard a lot of different folks say a conference center or something else. There hasn't been a purpose out there that would justify another tax on the citizens. For me.
And on the city side, I mean, is that part of an ongoing conversation?
The biggest part of my conversation that I haven't done a deep dive into yet would just be an impact study on the citizens. I don't want to tax any citizens that may already be living at a poverty line or a poverty cliff. So the first major step would be an impact study. But I believe on a wheel tax and entertainment tax, the county has first right of refusal before it would move to a city legislation, correct?
They have changed the law when I did propose a food and beverage tax several years ago to be able to finance a conference center, which we definitely need in Wayne County. And when I say Wayne County, basically it should be in Richmond where it needs to be on there. We definitely do need that, but that went down to defeat at that time. But they've changed the law now that if the county doesn't want to invoke one for the county, that the city can invoke one just for the city.
Oh, really?
And I'm not real familiar, but I know it changed on there and within the last couple of years on there. So it is different than it has been in the past. I have heard discussions out of the Tourism Bureau that they've been investigating. Maybe you've heard the same thing about a food and beverage tax on there. And they've been out to visit other folks that have that and how they utilize the funding. But at the same time, being pretty familiar with our county council, and I think I'll give them a 50-50. I'll put it that way. But in reality, I think it's probably about a 99 to 1.
Well, and I know we just have a little bit of time left, so I don't want to go too far deep in the weeds on this. But it would seem to me that part of the issue that this community has, which is a good problem to have, is we have such an influx of outside money that's spent here. That correct. Richmond and Wayne County is a regional hub, and how do you get to offset some of those resources that you need to be that regional hub without doing something like this? But I also would say at the same time, when you sell yourself as a logistics hub, and that we have a lot of those things require tires, and so to ship stuff out can be a challenge as well.
If we're going to look at food and beverage tax, it's got to be, and economic development is one of the identified purposes that could be used for. And if we're looking at workforce, getting the workforce ready and moving down that line, in my opinion, that's the only way and the only purpose that I would even entertain those type of things, that tax.
We are creeping up here towards the end of our time. And I wanted to make sure we reintroduce everybody. This is In Focus on Whitewater Community Television. Phil Quinn filling in for Eric Marsh on this last live edition of In Focus. We do have some time in case someone wanted to call in a question or chat. 973-8587, on Twitter at WCTV Info, and email WCTV@WCTV.info. When I have watched Eric handle some of the candidate forums, and there's topics, and we get right up to the last couple of minutes, and I always appreciated having a time to either talk about something specific that was of interest for your constituents, or something said. I think what you brought up earlier, Mayor Snow, is important, that when politicians or when a person decides to put their name on a ballot, they are not doing it for the money. There's not, at this level, it's just not about that. It's about trying to move the community forward in your ways. But what is something, a wave of magic wand, if there was one thing that you would like to see us do as a community in the next year, what would be one of those things?
Wave a magic wand. And
if you could solve one problem in 12 months here in this community, what would you try to tackle?
Oh, I mean, a magic wand would be the drug problem, without a doubt. Absolutely. That would be a magic wand that would help people just make the decision not to travel down that road for whatever reason they make that decision, because that would put us in a different place.
That just affects everybody.
It does.
In so many
it has a huge
areas.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would think that in the last 12 months, we've never been more open about talking about that problem. I mean, it seemed like, especially early on, the committees that got together, even in 2015, there was a real passion of saying, hey, let's call it what we've got. Let's give it some real numbers, because you can't address it with it. And I feel like the syringe program and some of the changes in medical procedures that Reed Health has decided to adopt and bring in, that's got to help us going forward, because some of it's about just treatment and sympathy, empathy.
Well, there's a report out, in Commissioner Butters mentioned it to me just the other day, of the syringe program, not in our local area, but in some other areas, that has been out for a while. And it came back that it was very positive. And there was a lot of discussion on this syringe program as whether or not we should do one here. And there's still a lot of discussion, a lot of folks that don't like it, they don't want it on there. But I was pleased to hear what she had to say, that in the other community where that's been out long enough that they could really study, that a very positive effect would come out of it. And I feel the same thing here. And we're all working on that, and you're absolutely right. Boy, if we could eliminate that, oh my gosh, the difference that would make in the community here. Yes.
So I'll say that you have that one too. Pete, would you wave a magic wand? The drug problem would be something that you would tackle, or something else?
I think there's some progress being made in the drug problem, and if you could wave a magic wand, obviously that's something that we would all love to see just vanish. And it's not a Richmond only issue. It's not a Wayne County issue. It's a national issue. From coast to coast, it's a national issue.
And didn't President Obama just sign something for federal money to come back into the states to address this? And if I think within the last couple of weeks somewhere, and they were rushing to try and get that money out to us to help address this.
Right. And those monies are coming back into our community already. The state has Recovery Works that I know through the mental health centers is coming back. We have a couple of the addiction centers beginning to come online here in the first half of 17. Hopefully some of those relationships with the syringe program, the addicts are getting relationships with the nurses to want to get into a program.
Hang on just one moment, because on this topic we do have a chat question that I think is in regards to the health department. We'll check that out now. Has the changes and federal designation for the Wayne County Health Department been a positive change for Wayne County?
Well, it certainly is a positive change for Wayne County, not only on the funding in which they've been able to get through this designation on there, the additional income that they're getting. What that's going to make available to us is we're gradually in the process of separating the health center out into the federally qualified health center on there. It's making funding available to us, so it's, to a certain extent, it's like getting new money, which county council has, and they're able to utilize that funding for projects as well as salaries and other things on there. And as we make this move, they'll actually be paying extra dollars in because we own the building, we own the grounds, we own the parking spaces and all that on there. So we're in the process right now. The attorneys are putting the lease together on there where they'll be leasing that. So on Wayne County's part, there's going to be more funding coming into the county to be able to do projects on there. And as they look at that, they're wanting to expand that facility more. And I think what you'll see is they'll be able to spread their reach out into other counties. Union County, Randolph County, even down into Fayette County is where they'll be able to service people. And they have the new dental program. The new dental program is all because of this new federally qualification on there, and they'll have that up and running the first of the year also.
And the other benefit in this community is they're accepting all the exchanges. So there's going to be doctors at the health clinic that'll be able to accept the insurance that folks are going to get through the exchange program.
Yeah. People need to understand everyone is welcome at the Wayne County Health Center. Even if you're making $100,000 or $200,000 or only $25,000 a year, that health center is available to you. So if you have an illness or something, we'll see you.
I love that. That's great. That's a great call to action. Okay, we are getting close to the end of our time, and so knowing Dave's past, I know I can ask him a question that's completely off the wall and allow you guys a chance to come up with a suitable answer
Think about
for our audience.
Dave, go first.
Dave is just good on his feet, and so we're going to take advantage of that.
Okay.
It is Christmas. It is a time to try to I don't know, maybe mend people together that had just a lot of anger. There was a lot of disappointment in 2016 and a lot of different levels, just, you know, national, local, whatever. What is one thing about this type of year what's one positive that you see with the citizens of Richmond or the people that when you get to this time of year, what do you find fond about Christmas in Richmond, Wayne County?
You know, I think we do Christmas better than most any other city. Now, I know I'm the mayor saying that.
Yeah, well,
and it's a mayor's job to, you know, grab the lapels and say, my city's the best. But honestly, when you live here, you take a lot of it for granted. when you take a step back and look how Richmond celebrates this holiday season, and you've got the old-fashioned Christmas festival in the depot, and you've got the holiday parade and the celebration of lights at the park, and the list just goes on and on and on. The lighting of the tree at City Hall, the lights downtown, the gingerbread trail.
Sure.
I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I really think that Richmond does Christmas better than anybody. You can go to New York City and ice skate, and they have a big Christmas tree. Or you can come to Richmond and see a wonderful parade and a wonderful Christmas festival and carolers and carriage rides, and it's a tremendous place to celebrate this season. Plus, when that snow fell the other day, it just looked beautiful around here. I just took a walk through Glen Miller Park. It looked amazing.
Yeah.
So it's a great place to be for the holidays. I love it.
Well, and I would ask you as well. In the few minutes we've got left, Ken, you've served in this community for a long time. As you approach the end of the year, what's something fond? If you were to say, I like Wayne County because, what would be one of those things?
Well, I suppose I would say I like Wayne County because of all the folks that are in it. To me, people still consider me on the county side, I'm still the city boy. Now, I've been there 23 years on the county side, and I was 20 years on the city side, but I'm still county. I think it's all the people that we have in the county. It's not only all the events that you just mentioned, and as the mayor of the city of Richmond, you talk about, well, we have this. Well, I don't look at it as you just had that in Richmond. I look at that's involved in the entire county. The whole county participates in that. They all go down to the depot. They all come into the community. They all come in for the fundraising events that are held, and a lot of them are held here within the city of Richmond on there to help people throughout the entire county. They just don't help folks in the city of Richmond on there. And that's the good part here. And you're absolutely right. We do all come together at the end of the season, whether it's in Centerville or Hagerstown or Cambridge City or wherever it might be, even in Whitewater on there. It's all part of all of us working together on there, and we all appreciate everything that you do in the city. And because as you go, we go also on there. And the only other thing I would add that I would agree with him on is that if we can get rid of the drug problem, I would like to take a magic wand and get rid of the Bradford apartment and the old Reed Hospital.
That's a big wand.
Those are two extremely big eyesores that affect this entire community. They're all 65,000 people.
As you reflect, Pete, your time on, I mean, what's something that you would, what's so good about Wayne County?
Just to piggyback a little bit on what Ken said, the folks here, and it's so easy to get engaged in our community. And our citizens, the folks that live in this community, whether it's going to the local restaurants and Sheba's and Gallows and shopping at those local stores, Embellish and the folks downtown and whatnot, and Veach's, and really...
We seem to support local pretty well.
We support local really well.
That's a Bob Rosa effect, right?
And local is Wayne County.
Yeah,
I remind folks of that. I have to all the time when they talk about it. I say, wait a minute. Richmond's just part of Wayne County.
Right.
You know, and you go down and you name all of them. That's Wayne County. You know, Richmond's just one segment of that.
That's it.
You know, and you tapped onto something there that's special about this area, and I'm still hearing about local people who are working to open restaurants and taverns and things. We were lucky to grow up at a time when local businesses were family last names.
Right.
You know, I grew up with Phillips Drugs and Veach's Toy Store, and as we've kind of gone over the years, there's been this sort of over-homogenization of America, big box America, and the same restaurants in every city.
Right.
Thankfully, people around here understand the importance of let's have something unique and special here. And that's still growing and still happening, and that needs to grow and happen. That'll always make us special, make us stand out. Because you can come to Richmond and get toys and coffee and cookies that you can't get anywhere else.
That's correct.
You know, that's us. Pizza. We have pizza. You can't get anywhere else.
Or candles.
Candles. In the county. You can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, just thinking, and next year, when we're all here for this same discussion, we're going to have all these paved roads.
That's right.
And you're going to have 7th Street and 10th Street's going to be done. South A Street's going to be done. We've got 3 or 4 bridges out in the county that are all going to be done. And we're just going to be shining all over. And as you put your program together and we get cleaner and neater on there, that'll be exciting on there. And as you continue to do that, I only encourage you to continue to look at our interstate sections that we have, and that we try and work with the state to make them look even prettier yet. And I would love to see flowers on all those areas. And you know, you come off of some of those, even the 40 East is the worst one, when you come off of there, and the state has this kind of prairie thing that they like, you know, but it looks terrible. And if you go to other places, I always like to, when I go east over to Dayton, Ohio, when I turn on 75 there, and that whole interchange that they have there, that's one of the nicest ones that I've seen for a long time. And you know, they keep the grass, they have grass out there, they keep the grass, they have the shrubbery. That's what you're talking about. And I back that 100%. We ought to look so neat when people first drive off of that interstate into this town, they go, my gosh,
absolutely.
I think I want to live in this community, and that's where we need to go. And I'm with you. I'll back you 100% as far as I can on getting it that way.
We're their first impression of all of Indiana.
Well, that's right. That's absolutely correct.
And there's 6 million cars that travel along that stretch, and they know us from the arch, they know us from the candle. I mean, you know, there are some identifiers, and we just you know, just be able to tap into those and get them to continue to pull off. I think the Depot District has been really successful at that, expanding that into Cambridge City and Hagerstown and Centerville. That those things are just great.
Oh, I do have have I got a second for a suggestion?
But it's got to be quick.
Real quick. Take the Depot District. It's an excellent area to have 2 roundabouts. And I think we ought to have a roundabout. I love roundabouts on there.
We just had a nice program. And then all
you did? Oh, roundabouts are great. And at each end of the depot there, you know, that's perfect. You got 5 roads coming into the one, and the other one you got 3 across the railroad track. A nice roundabout there would be perfect.
Where's the snowman on the Segway supposed to maneuver on that when he's down there running around?
I still don't know how to drive on those things.
We just have a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to ask a last question. 2017, we're going to be good. We're going to be better. It's going to be the best. Pete, what do you think about 2017?
We're going to be better.
We're going to be better. Ken?
We're actually going to be better. We have several things in place now that we've hired with people. We're going to do the first strategic plan for a county government that's done in the state of Indiana. We'll be #1. It's a beta that we have on there, and we have 3 or 4 other programs that we have underway. It's going to be a great year for us.
All right, fantastic. Last
Better
word, Mayor.
is the only way to go. Absolutely.
Yeah. I appreciate your willingness to serve and to spend a Thursday evening with us and our viewers. I think it's helpful to see and to just, you know, to not have a hot button issue, but just talk about where the successes and the challenges were, because what we're hearing is a lot of symmetry, and I think that's fantastic. And you know, and I appreciate you spending the time. Bruce Wissel couldn't be with us tonight, but I do know that he sends his regards as well, because for these gentlemen and for all those people that serve, it's a time to be blessed. Wayne County does have its challenges, and all the communities inside Wayne County have their challenges, but at the end of the day, I think there's more people that are in it to see, as you can tell here, that we're in a better place. So thanks for joining us here on Whitewater Community Television. Again, you can see replays of this broadcast coming up about 10:30 tonight and other times. And don't forget to go to WCTV.info, because a great contribution is to become a member of Whitewater Community Television. That's a tax-deductible gift, by the way. And you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and also the website, WCTV.info. I want to thank Eric Marsh and his family. We wish, I know the staff here, all the folks that work behind the camera, the people that work behind, that pushing the buttons. We could have used a makeup person today, you know, a little bit. That would have been great. But we do wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year, and we will see you in 2017 for another edition of In Focus, brought to you by Whitewater Community Television. Have a great night. Be safe out there.
It's Christmas time at Wayne Bank.
I want to decorate like the Christmas story.
I want to decorate in red.
I want to decorate traditional.
We may not agree on how we want to decorate, but what we do agree on is that we want you all to have a
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You are watching Whitewater Government Television, Channel 11.